Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Paul Brown Show, where we're taping live at 2 Expose You Studio, where the founder, Mr. Daryl Goodman, we got Mr. Ray Harvey, and Miss Crescenda, who's here. And as my special guest, I have Miss Lori Johnson. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me
Yes, ma'am.
today. I appreciate that. And also to the 2 Expose You crew, I
right.
appreciate you all for having me here as well. So, a little bit about myself. I am, sorry, I am a transplant, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
And I'm here in Charleston. I live here. I've been living here now for 36 years. Okay, so I guess my grandma would say I'm a binya and not a kamya in the Gullah tongue. So anyway, I appreciate being here. I've been in media for quite some time. And I look forward to talking about the message of In Defense of Dinah, coming out of the shadow of shame. And again, thank you for having me. And I'm also in radio as well in Charleston.
Okay. Okay, first of all, who is Dinah?
Who is Dinah? Okay, the question, who is Dinah? She's a biblical character, okay? And the biblical character, her story is written in Genesis chapter 34. So Genesis chapter 34 is about her going down to see the daughters of the land, as the story says. Okay. Now, when she was there, she attracted the attention of one of I guess he would be considered a political leader. His name was Shechem. So Shechem decided that he wanted to be with her, and he attacked her. And he raped her, just the bottom line, just to say it like it is. Okay, yeah, so that's the basis of the story, is her story about just going there, minding her own business, and now she's the victim and the target of an attack by someone there in the land.
So rape, so what do you think as far as, there's a lot of statistics about rape. Tell us a little bit about that, some of the statistics.
Yeah, the statistics are pretty troubling. You know, every 2 minutes in America, a woman is raped or otherwise sexually assaulted. And sometimes it can be a difference. You know, someone would say, well, what's the difference between being raped and sexually assaulted? Correct. You could be walking down the street and somebody slap you on the behind or something like that. You know, in the high school, remember, I don't know if you remember, I'm not saying that about you, but, you know, walking down the hall, sometimes the girls would, you know, have to be subject to the aggressions of some of her high school fellow peers and things like that. So that's an assault, you know, especially if it's unwanted. You know, and the studies show that most people who have had this happen to them, they don't want it to happen to them. They are definitely not they don't want nobody to know, I should say, that has happened to them. So they'll keep it a secret and, you know, maybe go and have situations where they're ashamed of themselves because it has happened, because maybe they start thinking, well, maybe I did something to encourage that. So in women aged 18 to 24 in the college ages, they're more likely, highly likely, to have some sort of an attack happen to them while they're in college. And it's very unfortunate, those statistics, but they are alarming.
Okay, why did you choose this topic as far as rape?
Well, because when I became Dinah's story became mine. Okay. It began as a child of 10 years old being molested by a family member. Okay. And also at the age of 22, I was the victim of a serial rapist. You know, he didn't know me, I didn't know him. He was a stranger, broke into my home and attacked me. And then the next occasion where it happened, it was an acquaintance that I did not want that to happen just because we knew one another and we were friends. I did not ask him. No means no.
Correct.
And so he did not comply with that. So that's what actually happened on 3 different occasions. And that, you know, is something that I want to talk about more so because there are a lot of instances where women have this sort of thing happen to them on more occasion than not when they don't address it at the onslaught. So not to bring themselves or put themselves or have themselves be exposed to this type of thing happening to them again. That's one of my missions as well, to avoid that.
Okay, when you said you're probably doing a lot better than you think you are, what does that mean?
Well, it's a saying that I've recently coined because, you know, a lot of times we'll second guess ourselves. Okay. We think, you know, as I just said, I should have done a little bit different. I should not have been in that position. Maybe I had too much to drink. Maybe my skirt was too short. Maybe, my clothes were too tight or whatever. Those types of things, I don't want women to question themselves if they've
Correct.
been the victims of an assault. I don't want them to put themselves in a situation where they're asking themselves, is it something I did? Because the big message, one of the biggest message is that nothing you did, nothing, I'm telling you, and I mean it so much so that, Paul, if they were walking naked down the street, nothing they did would allow or would give reason for a man to rape them. There's no reason that something like that should ever happen. There's no crime, there's nothing that could ever have been done that a woman did or placed herself that would say, now you deserve to be raped, so here you go. No.
Okay, what we're gonna do now, we have like an artist showcase, and what we do is we bring on new artists' videos, and we're gonna bring one on for you now. Artists, just sit back and listen to Miss Mia Deneen.
Sitting on the train today, thinking about you, and it really blows my mind. It seems you have it all. You're successful, full of life, and looking fine. But then you cry at night, 'cause try as you might, something's missing in your life. Gotta get it right, something you've got to know. I know you're going through a trying time, but you gotta look up, you gotta look up. I gotta say that you've been on my mind. You know you gotta look up, you gotta look up. The trials of life can break you, and the pain can weigh you down. You know you gotta look up. You tell me that it never ends, that no matter how you try or what you do, it's never quite enough, and sometimes you feel you cannot make it through. Even when you're trying your best, in your heart you're still feeling emptiness. What you're missing, I don't have to guess. The trials of life can break you, and the pain can weigh you down. But if you look up, look up, look up, joy will come around, round, round, round. You know you gotta. I know you're going through a trying time, but you gotta look up, you gotta look up. I gotta say that you've been on my mind. You know you gotta look up, you gotta look up. The trials of life can break you, and the pain can weigh you down. You know you gotta lift up your eyes into the hills. Where does your help come from? Your help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Lift up your eyes into the hills. Where does your help come from? Your help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. I know you're going through a trying time, but you gotta look up, you gotta look up. I gotta say that you've been on my mind. You know you gotta look up, you gotta look up. The trials of life can break you, and the pain can weigh you down. You know you gotta look up.
Welcome back to the Paul Brown Show. Miss Mia Deneen was my showcase artist, and I'm back with Miss Lori Johnson. We'll be talking about the topic of rape. tell the audience, I mean, that rape topic, it's a big thing that we have in our society today.
Oh, it absolutely is a very big topic. Statistics also show that, people who are molested, raped, intimidated sexually, they know the person.
Okay.
It's the statistics are higher that it is an acquaintance, someone that is known, a family member, friend, or something like that. So one of the biggest things that I really want people to take away from it is that we have to, as the book says, come out of the shadow of shame and understand that there's nothing that we've done that particularly is asking for it or anything like that, even as it relates to the way we dress. So society has always told women, if you're provocatively dressed, you're asking for it. And again, that's not true. So we want to dispel those types of myths that women are asking for it and things like that, of that nature. So I also want to be able to help people to not blame themselves,
Okay.
if, for example, they have had too much to drink. That's a pretty big pretty big issue. And so being that, these things happen, we are in shame and we, keep ourselves, we keep it quiet. We don't talk about it. And when the Me Too movement came along, that encouraged women to have a voice. What my desire is, as Dinah did not have a voice, the biblical character, when her story was told, I've heard religious leaders actually say, well, if she had been more obedient and not gone down to see the daughters of the land, maybe that wouldn't have happened to her. So as a young child, this is in my mind, I was conditioned to think that, okay, so you better do what you're supposed to do and stay away from people who are not like you, and this won't happen. And so in my mind, as I grew up, I had a deathly fear, a fear of that happening to me. And as the biblical character Job says, I believe the thing I feared the most came to me. And the thing I feared the most was being a victim of some type of sexual assault. And it happened over and over again. Now that may sound woo-woo-woo to some people, but I really believe in that energy attracting things like that and negative things, happening, dispelling them, and also, attracting them to you. So this is what I want people to understand, that the words we say, are very powerful, and how we talk to other people about the issues and the things that have happened in their lives. And to also try to comfort people to know that the way you speak to someone
Correct.
when it happens and after it has happened has a very powerful impact on how they come back from it and recover and heal.
Okay, the individual that assaulted you, whatever happened to them?
Well, in the case of the serial rapist, that was when I was 22 years old. As I said, he turned out to be a serial rapist in the community. And his target was older women. Okay. His target was grandmothers, believe it or not. And so when I became his victim at only 22, that was something that, the police department at the time, shout out to the Charleston City Police Department for them very much being committed to capturing him. And I was instrumental in helping that happen as well, because it was so to answer your question, he was apprehended,
Okay.
and he is now still spending time in jail, life in prison, because of the amount of women.
Correct.
And the viciousness of the attack. He assaulted me in front of my 2-year-old daughter. At the time, she was only 2. And the viciousness of the attack, he could have killed me because he was choking me because I was fighting him back so hard. And so to answer your question with that, now the first time the molestation happened with a family member, I had this apprehension, and I didn't even know how to put words to that even happened to me at 10 years old. I didn't even know how to speak to that issue that was happening, that happened to me, because I was afraid. I was young, I was naive, and being that he was older than me, he used that as an opportunity to manipulate me into thinking, well, we're married and this is what married people do. And so I had a fear. I didn't say anything to anyone about it, and I knew it was wrong. But then it went too far, and at a time, as I speak about that in my book, I talk about it, and there was this time when, he really took it to that point where when I went into the bathroom and I wiped and I saw what I thought was blood. So that in itself was just a weighty issue.
Correct.
And again, he's no longer with us. He fell victim to a crime as years went by. As I got older, he fell victim to a crime. And I'll never forget thinking, you know, as I said, I didn't know how to tell my mother. I didn't know how to tell anybody,
Correct.
As a young girl. And, I'm still trying to just go along and be my happy-go-lucky self as a youngster, and it was very, very difficult for me to maneuver through school. I had situations where, I started bullying somebody, that didn't last real long because my mama, she worked down the hallway. She was a school teacher. So
Okay.
all my teacher had to do was tell my mother, and that I stopped that really quick. And I'm a little embarrassed about that because of the harshness of bullying today.
Correct.
And that's another issue. But, sometimes there are underlying situations where the people who are bullying, they're doing so because they might be going through something, as was my case. And I'm not trying to explain that away. But I was angry. I was just mad and I was confused. And so I just felt like taking that out on somebody who was, a little bit in my opinion, she seemed to be afraid of me. So that was like something that gave me some sort of a, strength or something. But that was not right. And so that's why. And I don't want to belabor that issue, but that's something that I was dealing with as a young child.
Okay.
And that's it's a situation. So I, as I've come through and understood the different dynamics that go into, what happens, why people do what they do.
Correct.
For example, we can stop and take a look and back up and, try to understand is what I'm saying. Seek to understand when people do things that we don't approve of. I wonder, why is it? What's causing that? What's the underlying issue? And it could be some unresolved trauma that a person is dealing with. And not all cases, but in some cases that could be the issue.
Now, your children, how many kids do you have, and have you ever told them about your situation?
I have, yes. I have 3 young adults. They range in age from 36, 34, and 32. My
Okay.
son will be 32 years old tomorrow. So
All right.
to God be the glory. And they're, as I said, this has happened more than 30 years ago because my oldest daughter, she was only 2 at the time when the attack happened with the serial rapist. So yes, I have explained it to them. I've talked to them about it. And they're aware of it, and they support me in this battle to defend Dinah.
Do you ever talk to your daughters about whatever happens if this should happen to them? Because we never, I guess, ladies don't expect it to happen. It's just, this is just something that just happens. This guy, he's thinking that just because he bought you a drink or he took you out, that he's expecting something. So do you tell your daughters about how to handle a situation like that?
Well, thankfully, that they've never had to go through anything like that, and I'm so grateful because I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy,
Correct.
as it says, as the saying goes. And I am grateful that they have not been in those types of situations. But if in fact, and having grandchildren now, two granddaughters,
Okay.
3 granddaughters actually, I pray that never happens. But in erring on as far as being cautious,
Correct.
of course we would, speak to them about putting themselves and making sure that any decisions that they make, we want to respond without emotion, but we want to respond with thinking more so. So if that were to ever happen, we definitely know the support for me
Correct.
was monumental. So having a supportive community is absolutely imperative. If that were to happen, if you or anyone you know in your family, being supportive. If you don't know what to say, just not saying anything. There are rape crisis centers. Here, one in particular, the People Against Rape, they are very instrumental in helping people walk through that process with family members and friends who have had that issue. We also have, the groups that I am also spearheading, as I said, in defense of Dinah, and another one, MASTER. MASTER is called, the acronym, I deal a lot in acronyms. So MASTER stands for Men Against Sexual Terrorism Engaged Radically. So you want to master your emotions as a male. I believe that it does start with them to
Correct.
help men understand it's nothing wrong with admiring a woman. It's the way you admire a woman so that she doesn't feel uncomfortable. And we all know that mastering our emotions, when I think of the biblical character Samson, he may have been fit physically, but emotionally he allowed Delilah, he allowed her to really make him more or less weak. So we want to master our emotions and be able to respond to individuals in a way that allows them to help each other feel comfortable and confident. And it's just, it's a matter of emotional maturity is what it is.
Okay, I got a question. Individual contacted me as far as when we talking about this subject like that, and they say when women goes into a club and when they're dressed, short dress and all that. I mean, do you feel like they're asking, or they're trying to put the guy into some type of mode, whereas mentally he's thinking, okay, ex- you know, she's sending signals.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. Women have a tendency, especially if, and I want it to be clearly understood that I believe that men are supposed to be attracted to women.
Correct.
Okay, and women, especially if they have they accent the positives. You may dress in a way that you accent the positive, but that still does not give a man
Correct.
the permission to take that as, oh, she's inviting me, because there may be someone in particular that she has her eye to look at her and say, you really look great, So it's the way, the intensity of the attraction, I think that is really, some men may go a little bit overboard. Now, if a person, if the way they're dressed, a woman in particular, if the way she's dressed attracts a man's attention, then he reciprocally has to say, well, I don't want to just come out and say, hey, I want to get you home and take you to bed and, just come all out just like that from way left field.
Correct.
So there's a way to say, you know what, you really look good in that dress. And, I'm not trying to dictate to a man how to respond, but also we also have to understand that when you do invite alcohol in, alcohol impairs judgment and otherwise lowers,
Okay.
So a lot of things have to be taken into consideration in that case.
I know we're this book, In Defense of Dinah, I mean, what do you want our viewers to know? You know what I'm saying? First of all, how do they go about getting their book?
Well, the book is available on all platforms, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, online.com. Here in Charleston, the Westview Barnes & Noble has copies of the book in store for people who like to go to the store and buy them. But again, Amazon.com, just search the title, In Defense of Dinah, and you can order it like that. And so I also have, social media platforms.
Okay.
People can contact me directly if they'd like to get a copy of the book as well.
You're doing an awesome job, with the book
Thank you.
and the things that you do as far as educating our community on. This is a very important topic that I think we kind of don't take serious, because a lot of ladies are being attacked, and a lot of guys don't really believe, or their family member may not believe that they've been attacked. So now they have to go into the mode of, I got to convince.
Wow. That's interesting that you bring that up, because that was one of the biggest things that happened to me as well. A family member said, well, what do you want me to do? And at the time, I took it that she was being sarcastic and, but maybe she did genuinely feel helpless.
Correct.
Because now here it is a situation, chaotic, of course, and she doesn't know what to do. So a lot of family members, you're right, and they don't know how to respond to that. And, unfortunately, some people will say, well, I told you not to go there, so sometimes the response is a little bit more aggressive than it needs to be, and that just really escalates the situation in in an even worse situation. It makes it even worse. So that's what I hope to do, to educate people on how to respond,
Okay.
to people, if this does happen. Prayerfully, it doesn't. That's also the goal, to eliminate the aggression of men towards women. And it happens to men too. I have to bring that out as well. It does happen to men and young boys, unfortunately, but I'm just speaking to it from this position.
Okay. Another thing, I know we have like the women that's in a relationship with the man, and they have daughters, and the men start looking at the daughters, and situation occurs. What are some signals that a woman should look at when she feels like something is going on between that boyfriend and her daughter?
That's a powerful topic, and the biggest thing I would say is don't ignore the signals. My grandmother used to call it gut. If you in your gut and you feel and you know something and you think something is going on, absolutely do not ignore that. That's that mother wit, and be intentional about it, separating from that situation as quickly as possible. If you feel within your heart and your soul, and that goes back to a personal
Correct.
thing. If you feel that that's something that's happening, do not ignore that by any means. Your child's safety is the most important thing in that case, in that situation, and you absolutely want to act and let that child know that you take them very seriously in what they said, and you really believe what they said.
Correct.
So because the child doesn't want to clam up and not say anything at all. So that's a powerful subject, and maybe topic for another discussion, because that happens quite frequently. You're right.
Okay, we were running short on time.
Okay.
But one more thing. I mean, how about that woman who loves that man and she don't want to lose that man, even though she sees the sign?
That's like I said, that woman, there's some brokenness and emptiness on the inside of her that needs to be addressed, because if it becomes a question of choosing a child over a man's attention, then that's something in that woman, that brokenness needs to be addressed in her. And so getting help, getting help and really looking at her from a standpoint of what needs to be done to support you. How can I support you? If that question ever comes up, to know that you have to make a decision that's in the best interest of your child. You'll get another man. You can get another man, but the baby,
Correct. Yeah, that's and I think we have some ladies who make that, they would rather be in that relationship than have the idea of my man is molesting my daughter. That's a big thing that I think we have going on in our society today. And it may sound kind of crazy, but
No, it doesn't
is.
sound crazy, not at all. Not
Okay,
at all.
we're running short of time. I really appreciate you, Ms. Johnson, for coming on the show. And anytime you want to come back, just let us know. And thank you, audience, for watching the show, and you be encouraged.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am.